Sonic X Episode 17. We start out hearing pretty nice music, and Knuckles is standing on top of a canoe, and he narrates that he had been giving up hope of getting home until 2 months ago when he met Hawk, and we see him go into a stone temple. Then we see a man nearly get crushed by walls closing in on him until Knuckles saves him. Clear Indiana Jones ripoff there. I'm pretty sure that on realistic Earth, there are no temples with the kind of technology to have traps like that. Later on, Knuckles is angry about being mistaken for Sonic somehow, and somehow the man thinks he's a hedgehog too. He's led to a bar full of mean-looking people. Are there really bars where everyone's mean? That feels statistically unlikely to me, that all of them would be evil, instead of just neutral. Knuckles asks the bartender if he's seen Hawk. What kind of a normal Earth name is Hawk? Then all the people in the bar threaten to throw Knuckles out. That's weird. Especially since he's friends with some guy who fought Eggman. Seriously, I don't find that believable. Then Lee, a leader of organized crime, shows up. And Knuckles says that Hawk told him he had something he wanted, so he goes with him. Well, that's a twist. The people in black trench coats are Eggman's robot sidekicks. I wish the comic had them wear those instead of paper-thin disguises. Because that was a disguise that wasn't immediately obvious. Also, I love that in Sonic F, he said, flawless disguises! Lee wants to lead Knuckles into a room. Knuckles isn't gullible, being actually written properly instead of a bumbling idiot this whole episode, as he tells him to go in first. But somehow Lee anticipated that and made Knuckles fall into a cell through a trapdoor. Does Earth have trapdoors? Well, we do have some pretty good technology. But how would a realistic Earth gangster in Chinatown have a trapdoor to trap Knuckles and Hawk together? This kind of silly stuff is why Sonic X should have taken place on Mobius. Eggman's told about Hawk, and Hawk tells Knuckles that he had seen a red Chaos Emerald. Knuckles seems to act power greedy, wishing that he could have them all, but since that would have been too interesting, instead he's looking forward to spending hour after hour sleeping in front of the Master Emerald. How the hell would he enjoy that to the point of thinking it as a paradise-like lifestyle? That'd be so boring. That's not a believable character. He even did that when it was raining, apparently, without demanding Tails to build him a umbrella, or at the very least. If the Chaos Control Spear sent the Sonic characters to Earth, how the hell did it not also send all of the landscape they were standing on to Earth? Hawk is surprised that this is why Knuckles wants the emerald, since he just wanted it for money. Knuckles prevents Hawk from saying where he hid the emerald. And then they start complimenting the cell while Knuckles surprisingly spots the bug. I'm impressed by his intelligence. See, this is how you write Knuckles competently. It's not just about him being strong, he's also being surprisingly clever. Hawk actually gets the idea on his own to start speaking quietly so that Lee can turn up the volume when listening to them, and then Knuckles screams into the bug. Will they really have such an obvious bug? And even then, why would the bug be somewhere they can reach? Wouldn't it be common sense for it to be high up? And then we could have Knuckles show off one of his game powers he hasn't shown off at all in Sonic X so far, by having him climb up to the bug. Knuckles and Hawk take a ride on a... oh great, I forget what it's called. Somebody rides a bike and they take a ride on the back. A trolley, that's it. And they're in Chinatown. That's good, it adds variety to Station Square for a change. I wish we had this in the game. Then Rouge falls over because she got karate chopped in the back of the head. Am I expected to believe that would knock her out? I think her falling onto the pavement after that would be more likely to knock her out than that. Then again, considering what did knock her out, I guess it makes sense. Hawk unearths the bag he hid the emerald in near some train tracks. It was painfully obvious that they would immediately get surprised by an enemy since Hawk took so long to offer Knuckles the emerald. How the hell did Eggman know exactly where to send the hologram of his Eggmobile when he's not Hawk? How would he know where Hawk hid it? That's so arbitrary. Knuckles gets threatened by a lady ninja robot, which had knocked out Rouge earlier. And it spins a ball and chain and throws it towards Knuckles. Weasley dodges it and smartly keeps thinking to merely jump instead of attacking it directly. Hawk predictably doesn't get to grab the emerald right away, and the emerald gets buried in rocks because of the ball and chain. Rouge sees dust getting thrown up, and when she sees the egg carrier above her, she gets out of there. It'd be lame if she got out of here entirely because she's a coward and left the episode. Knuckles and Hawk keep jumping to escape as the building collapses. I think the falling debris would be falling at such a speed that you wouldn't be able to land on the debris and jump to the next one, unless you were falling faster than it somehow. Logically, whoever was in the building would have been killed. Good thing it was night. Hopefully it wasn't a residential building. I have a question. Why didn't Knuckles just dig to get the emerald? Then out of complete nowhere, even though it's on Earth, Knuckles finds the shovel claws, which he fortunately recognizes, implying that they're from Mobius. And Hawk found them in the temple when he was saved by him. If the shovel claws came from Mobius and were chaos controlled to Earth, why wasn't the rest of the landscape around the Sonic characters too? This is completely ridiculous. Knuckles shouldn't need an upgrade to dig when he jumped out of the ground in his first appearance without them. I thought they were stupid in Sonic Adventure as well. He finds the emerald, and it turns out Hawk was kidnapped by Eggman. Then Bo-Kun tries to show off that he knows karate. At least his time wasting is him showing off his personality instead of just threatening people with harmless explosives. I love that in Sonic F, Eggman actually lampshades that this isn't as intimidating as he thought it would be. Knuckles goes to Eggman, and when Rouge saves the day luring the ninja robot away, Knuckles saves Hawk. I love that the robot speaks with a normal female voice that's in English. They kind of ruined it in Sonic F by making her speak Japanese or something and having Japanese text all over the place. It was just distracting. Like, it was too obvious of an anime parody. It was out of a completely different show. Knuckles throws a plate at the chain of the robot, so it hits the robot and flings it into the table, which gets it covered in dust. And Rouge says she'll pay him a visit when things calm down, acting cowardly. Since when is Rouge like that? She's smarter than she is brave and strong. Then predictably, Hawk gets his emerald stolen by the robot out of nowhere, and Knuckles is right there to fight him. At least the episode is making Knuckles awesome. He needed a proper episode to himself after the last time he had one. He dodges her projectiles and kicks her, and then he screams at a laser being sent at him. He remembers the Master Emerald, as I by sheer habit with Archie expected him to save the day in a Deus Ex Machina by summoning his true power in a dangerous situation, since he remembered the Master Emerald. But fortunately that doesn't happen, although him triggering that kind of thing would have actually been pretty interesting and maybe nostalgic for Archie. So because that'd be too interesting, of course that wouldn't happen. We can't have Knuckles be too powerful in a show where Sonic beats everything he fights in one hit. As I wonder how the hell the robot survived up to this point when I thought it was defeated earlier when it was throwing up dust, miraculously it turns out that the super advanced robot wasn't waterproof. So Hawk defeated it for Knuckles. For once, he was the Chekhov's gunman instead of a kidnapping victim. Good thing that it wasn't raining when Eggman sent out that robot. And it's also a good thing that this time, when he spent too long offering the emerald to Knuckles, they don't get threatened. Even though logic would dictate that Rouge would have, hung out in the sky and waited for the robot to be defeated, and when it would be defeated, that's when she would dive in and steal the emerald. But instead she just completely took off. She was supposed to be smarter than that. Instead, she was just a coward and that's it. Then after Hawk wishes Knuckles could visit him again, acting surprisingly clingy and lonely as if he's never had a friend before, Knuckles says he'll be back someday, which I assume is a lie, and he doesn't lampshade the fact that there's nobody in the boat he's on, and thus he wouldn't know where it's going. And the red emerald shines, and suddenly he's in a white void. Then he randomly appears in front of the Master Emerald, which is even on his shrine. That is the laziest way to explain Knuckles finding the Master Emerald ever. How rushed for an SE1 out of oh, at least it was just a hallucination, and he wasn't literally teleported to the Master Emerald. But then it was just pointless. It would have kind of made sense because the emeralds were around the Master Emerald Shrine in the past, so they could have a connection to it. But if the Master Emerald was taken to Earth, you'd think Tails' plane would have crashed on Angel Island by now thanks to the emerald in his plane. Also, you would think that Angel Island would have been long discovered by this point, if it was there since episode 1, but I guess conveniently there were always clouds right above it, so no satellites ever discovered it, but you'd think that airplanes would have crashed into it. This was a pretty great episode. I loved that in an episode devoted to Knuckles, he got to be not only awesome and badass, but also clever, surprisingly. He doesn't trust Leon's word and go into a strange building first, and he realizes the cell is bugged, although he should have known the bug was there instantly. And also he wasn't gullible with the bartender lying to him. That's how Knuckles should be. Hawk was a surprisingly humorous character when he talked at length about how he wished the food could be better, and thought up the idea on his own to make him lower the volume of the listening device so Knuckles could yell at him. I was impressed by their teamwork as they were on the same wavelength instead of Knuckles having to tell him about the bug. I don't remember how they escaped the cell though, which is a problem. I just remember people rushing up to Lee. How did them scaring Lee cause them to be able to escape the cell? In Sonic Underground, he could drill through metal in the Death Egg just fine, which was cool. It was also a good climax since we had the ninja robot there, who was female to be interesting, and who eventually got the upper hand on Knuckles and let Hawk be useful. I still find it unbelievable that he'd be named Hawk on Earth, with no actual lampshading of it. That literally sounds like the name of a bird movie in like Predator Hawk. But lots of people have special snowflake names on Earth. It's a shame the very beginning of the episode was so unrealistic. When it's on Earth, Hawk gets rescued from walls closing in on him in a stone temple. Do stone temples on Earth really have that kind of technology? Wouldn't it have been dismantled and destroyed by archaeologists specifically so they'd be able to do stuff? And then after Knuckles is somehow mistaken for Sonic, it turns out everyone in the bar Knuckles went to was a jerk who wanted to throw him out because for no reason the bartender was too scared to tell him where Hawk was. Apparently I'm supposed to believe every single customer of that bar all at the same time was a gangster who worked for Lee. Granted, I can't blame Lee for wanting to find an emerald and get rich. And Eggman would never guess that he had it. And the heroes would find it eventually anyways because of the emerald in their plane. So maybe they were better off letting him keep it. The plot has Knuckles go on a whole adventure with Hawk until eventually he gets the emerald back. And it's an emerald episode, so surprisingly it isn't filler. I guess it was an author's saving throw to try to make up for the fact that Knuckles as a character was humiliated as a stupid, hot-headed idiot earlier, which forever tainted his reputation among the fanbase and made people see that as his actual characterization, and Archie's very different handling of him as incorrect, even though he wasn't a good character in Sonic X at all, and this is more of a standout deviation. But sadly he was so memorable that way, that that's how everyone imagines him now, including me. Even I was constantly surprised when Archie contradicted this characterization that came much later in the series, by having him calmly reason with his enemies, and had him get an education when he was a kid instead of being uneducated. Which was more respectable than this. I don't see how this anime characterization is better than Archie's, when Archie's was a lot more respectable, but at least he wasn't humiliated in this episode. And at least in Archie he was portrayed realistically and believably, instead of actually wanting to spend every hour of the day sleeping in front of the Master Emerald. Who would want that? No wonder he spent so little time with it in Archie. And later on in the franchise. He doesn't even have a book. He's just sleeping. How is that not boring and unfulfilling? He would have been better off if it had cameras on the whole time and was underground where it was safe. It was that way in Archie because that was common sense. I always thought it was stupid that it was just left outside in the open all the time, begging to be stolen. No wonder Eggman steals it every time he tries. Tails should really build a machine to lift up the Shrine of the Emerald and put it in an underground cave. Or build a high-tech security system around it. And guess what? In Sonic 3, the Master Emerald was underground because it was hidden in Hidden Palace Zone. Why did they change that for Sonic Adventure? What happened to Sky Sanctuary, which was perfectly fine in Knuckles' playthrough in Sonic 3? People think that this is good because it's consistent to the games, but even this is just contradicting the much better idea of an earlier game.